All right, all right. Happy Thursday, everybody. This is the Q&A live session for this week. Oh no, my hair. I just realized on this video that my hair looks crazy. Y'all probably can't tell, but to me it just looks out of sorts. Anyway, y'all don't care about that, right? You're here to get some help with the math and what programs you're in. If you're in my Financial Money Made Simple course, we have some stuff to review there for you. If you're taking our Algebra Made Simple 8-week challenge, I got a few people taking it at different stages in the process. We definitely have some topics we want to cover. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this thing. So I want to welcome. I know I have a new person who signed up today. Yay. If I had sound effects, I'd have like clapping going on. But anyway, thanks for joining us. And whether you're watching this live or catching the replay, welcome to the Algebra Made Simple 8-week challenge. You've made a great investment, and it's going to help get you caught up on maybe some things that you could have missed, maybe fill in some learning gaps, but hopefully get you excited for learning as you're heading into one of my favorite subjects, if not my favorite subject in the world, which is algebra. I just love it. It just makes so much sense. And so you made a great investment. If you're in our week one, I'm going to probably start with you today since you're new and you need to get a chance to connect. We are covering percents and percent for this first topic. And one of the reasons why I like the subject of percent is because it's so practical. It's just so practical. Did you know? I know you're young, but percent is literally how the world works. If you want to get a discount and get a good deal when you go shopping with your parents or even by yourself, you want to look for those discounts, and they almost always have them marked a percentage off, right? 30% off. If you want to calculate tax on a purchase that you made, you're going to have to usually pay anywhere from 7 to 9% sales tax. And so it would be really great if you could calculate how much actual money, dollars and cents, that is, so that you can plan, you can budget, you can actually make wise decisions based on whether or not you can afford something. And so this is going to be a very valuable week for you, not even just in your algebra class, but really just in everyday life. And that's why I like it so much. So anyway, we're going to start with my people going through the percent topic this week. So as a quick little topic, if you watch the video, you heard me say this. Percent by definition means out of 100. Okay, that's the definition of percent. So you've probably seen this a lot of times when I ask teenagers. I say, where have you seen the percent sign in your life, right? And the percent sign kind of looks like that, right? It's got a little circle slash, and a lot of them say, oh, I know what that is, Chris. That's the symbol on my cell phone, my iPhone, and it helps me know when the batteries are getting too low and I need to plug it in. And I'm like, well, good point, right? And as that percentage gets lower and lower, you have less charge in that full battery, right? So percent by definition means out of 100. One of the beneficial ways, if you can see that, one of the beneficial formulas I was actually showing in the video this week, and I'm going to show again here. I love this formula because it can be used to answer a lot of percent questions, and you can do it this week in your content and your weekly task, is this equation that really is a basis of algebra, and it's called part over whole. I'm going to put it on here. Part over whole equals percent out of 100, right? That's the formula. Part over whole equals percent out of 100. And so remember, whenever you see the percent symbol, you might as well put whatever percent someone's asking you to calculate. You might as well put that number right over 100 because that's the definition of percent. Okay, it's pretty easy. The other part of this equation is, of course, your part over your whole. And whenever you're asked a question in this week's daily task, you want to ask yourself, is the number they're giving me in this context, is it part of the entire thing, or is it the entire amount of whatever it is we're talking about, right? So what better way to do a Q&A than to, just look at your actual work this week? And so I'm pulling up those who are on week one, and it's basically, titled Percent Calculation Practice. And so this is just everyday math that can kind of get you warmed up here. And so, anyone here, you're a teenager, you probably bought, clothes, apparel, items. Question number one in here says, a shirt originally cost $80, but it's now on sale for 25% off, right? I like the sale for 25% off. All right. That means I don't have to spend all of the cost that I normally would to buy said shirt. Now, this is an expensive shirt. I mean, my goodness, $80 for a shirt. Y'all spend $80 on shirts. I mean, this must be a nice shirt. But anyway, you want to get it at a discount, right? At least smart people do, right? So if I'm using this equation right here, if it's $80 and I want to pay 25% off of that, it would be nice to know what 25% of $80 is. Now, you may have learned in prior years that you can convert to a decimal and multiply, that's fast. But this equation is something I want you to get used to using because it has other applications for questions that aren't as easy as and straightforward as what we're talking about here. And also, it can be helpful for learning equation solving, right? So if they tell you 25% off, because 25% is given to us, I'm putting that 25 over 100 as an example. Okay. It's the percent. So I put it out of 100. And then it says 25% of $80. Now, that's the entire price of the shirt if I wasn't getting a discount. The shirt is normally $80. So I'm putting 80 where the hole is here. And the question is, what is 25% of 80? So that's what we call in algebra an unknown. I have no idea at the moment what 25% of 80 bucks is. So whenever we have unknowns in algebra, you probably figured it out. We use something called variables. Usually the letter, right? The letter X is the most common form, but you could use any letter that you want to. It basically is our way of saying, hey, if I put a letter in here, it means there's a number. I don't know what that number is. I'm trying to figure it out. Okay. And if you've ever seen, proportions before, I always tell kids if you have a fraction set equal to another fraction, it's kind of like a proportion. You want to cross multiply and divide. Cross multiply and divide. And that's the tactic I'd like you to practice this week with a lot of these percent questions, right? X times 100. Well, we don't know what X is, right? If we diagonally multiply across. So we're just going to say 100X. Okay. We're just going to say 100X. That's what you do when you have an unknown times an actual numeric amount. You just put them side by side like that, right? And then we're going to cross multiply the other way around. Okay. We're going to do 80 times 25 diagonally. Now, you are in algebra at this point. You're probably 8th, 9th grade heading into that. I don't want you taking too much time to do that by hand, right? It is perfectly fine with me to get out a calculator for this part, do 80 times 25 just to make sure it's accurate. And also you can do it kind of quicker, right? So it turns out that's 2,000 on the nose. All right. 80 times 25. I didn't necessarily know that just off the top of my mind, right? But that comes out to 2,000. But then at this point, what you see is this is a one-step equation. So even if you're taking algebra 1 or 2 going into it, a lot of times they start with equation solving. One-step equations mean I can do one step and solve it, right? So right now, this is saying 100 times some number equals 2,000. What would be that number, right? 100 times what? Is it 100 times 3? Oh, no, that's 300. That's not nearly big enough, right? The easiest way to do that is to do what we call an inverse operation. So if 100x really means 100 times x, and I'm trying to undo what's happening so I know what x is, we want to do the opposite of what's happening. What's happening is a multiplication situation. 100x means 100 times x. To undo multiplication, we have to do the opposite of that, which is divide. So with equation solving, what you do to one side, you do to the other side at the same time. That's how it stays balanced, right? 100x divided by the 100 just frees up the x. So you're left with just x equals. And then 2,000 divided by 100, you basically can cancel out the zeros. This little trick for you. But that would be, excuse me, I think we messed up here somewhere. Let me check that out. 2,000 divided by 100 should be what it is. Let's see. 2,000 divided by 100. Oops, should be 20. I don't know why. I forgot to cancel out the other zero. I knew something was wrong there. This is what happens when you do a live video. So you can cancel out zero for zero. There's a zero here, zero here, zero here, zero here. So you're left with 20. That's a little trick. But if you do a calculator just to be on the safe side, you can catch yourself, right? So anyway, so that comes out to x equals 20. I was like, something's wrong there. All right. So 20 is the amount of money that I'm saving. If it says 25% off sale, I want to not spend a total of $80. I want to take my $80, right? And I want to subtract the 25% off, right? I want to subtract the $20. That means I get an $80 shirt for 60 bucks, right? For 60 bucks. And so that's pretty cool. If you come in, that's why people call it Black Friday, right? After after the holidays, and you want to get us a nice sale. So you rush in because a lot of times I have things 25% off, 30% off. And so if you can calculate, how much real money that is, that can help you decide what you can get and how you can get a lot of stuff for what we say is a good deal, right? So there's going to be two types of tasks, I should say. You have a PDF that you can print off if you prefer to do that to work through some of this. They'll ask questions like, hey, you got 40 students, 20% of them are left-handed. How many of the class are left-handed? That's still a matter of taking 20%. They'll ask it a variety of different ways. Now, just to kind of give you a couple ways to answer these or to think through how to calculate percents. We showed you the equation. The other method that you'll see from the video is how to convert to a decimal. That's kind of the quickest way if you have a calculator handy when you're on the fly trying to make decisions. And so let's talk sales tax, for example. Okay. Now, I don't know where you're from. I got different people from different parts of the country actually in our programming. But let's say you're in the state where I'm from. I'm from Tennessee. We have some higher sales tax rates. I don't know if you've ever noticed on the receipt that they give you when you buy stuff, there's a little tiny little, it says tax, and there's like always a few extra bucks added to whatever you wanted to buy. You wanted a $3 Coke, and then it says, I don't know, $4.10. You're like, where did that come from? Well, that was probably sales tax, right? Well, we have higher sales tax. That's actually probably pretty high for that price. But anyway, we have higher sales tax in my state. It's actually 9.25%. 9.25%. That's the Tennessee sales tax. There's places in Georgia, I know it's closer to like 7%. Depends on your state, right? But we don't have income tax. So it kind of evens out. So 9.25%, just to give you a visual, would look like this, right? And you might be asked to calculate 9.25% of a bunch of different things. Let's say, and I'm just making this up, let's say you went out to eat and you got Mexican food and y'all had a good old time and your bill was $20, but then they're going to tack on this sales tax to your bill. That's going to happen, right? It'd be nice to be able to calculate how much that's going to be so that you can, know where your money's going, right? Well, you could do the 9.25% over 100 equals X over 20. You could do that. Or you could do a concept called move to a decimal and multiply. So even though there is a decimal in this percentage, because it still has the percent sign, it hasn't been converted yet. The way you do it is to either move your decimal place. See, we'll take 9.25, move it 2 places to the left, 1, 2, it'd land here, and you'd have to replace that empty spot with a 0, meaning as a decimal, it's 0.0925, right? If you do that, move the decimal 2 places to the left, you'll get the new decimal 0.0925. Once it's been converted to a decimal, all you have to do in your calculator is multiply it by 20, multiply it by the bill, and you'll figure out how much sales tax you owe on top of your bill, right? I'll do that right now just for the fun of it. 0.0925. I'm going to multiply it by 20, just using my calculator that's handy. Turns out that's $1.85. Okay. It's a very quick way you can calculate tax, for example, in your everyday life. And you're going to have to pay $21.85 before you walk out of there. And that's not counting tip, right? That's a whole nother discussion. But that's one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is you can take the percent, and if you don't remember how many spots to move it, Chris, my eyes, it messes with me, just divide it by 100. And that'll do it for you automatically in your calculator, right? So you could do 9.25, for example, hit divide by 100, and it will equal 0.0925, right? That 0.0925 is the key. It's like unlocks the door. Multiply that by the amount, and you can get your percentages really quickly. So you can answer, quite a few of the daily tasks this week using the decimal method. But I'd love for you to try doing the equation, the part over whole equals X over 100 method as well. And I have some reasons for that. You'll see its applications to algebra this year. You really will. Okay. So, Q&As, unless you're on here live, we're just going to touch on a couple little things to clarify that I know you're going through to give you a little personal touch. And so we're going to keep it rolling. Now, we have some people in our program who aren't covering percents this week. They're covering polynomials and how to specifically do like operations with them, like adding them or subtracting them, even multiplying. I think we have a few of those, right? And so as a reminder, I'm going to put this up here for a second, but as a reminder, you got to be super, super careful with this, especially with the signs when you have like subtraction or addition. But remember, if you watch the video and remember, you have to organize, okay, your terms when there's adding or subtracting. They have the same rules, adding or subtracting, right? When you multiply, you can multiply anything by anything. It's kind of like, hey, everything goes in a sense. But when you're adding or subtracting, you have to be a little bit more organized and you have to categorize everything. So like, for example, I just kind of jotted this down as I'm talking. We were looking at a problem like this, I want to say, in this week's weekly video. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that you have some different terms, right? You have x squareds, 2x squared, and you have this 5x squared. Because they have both the same variable and the same degree, I can add them together. I cannot add an x squared with just an x that has no power of 2 next to it, right? They're not considered like terms in algebra, but the x squareds are. So maybe you start there. 2x plus 5x is 7. 2 plus 5 is 7. But because they're both x squareds, I leave it as x squared. I say 7x squared. Then I'm done. I can move on to the ones that just have the x. There's a 5x that just has an x, that has just an x. But even if you don't see it, that's considered a 1x, a negative 1x. So that'd be 5 plus a negative 1. I think that's positive 4x, right? And you just have to keep the terms separate. And then lastly, you have what we call a constant. It has no variable. It stays the same. It's always going to be 7. It's not 7x or 7p. So nothing to combine that with. I don't see another constant anywhere. So I just bring that one down as is. And this would be considered the sum, right? We've added the two polynomials together. So I cannot be more clear here. All right. If the terms have the same variable part and the same power, you can only put those matching ones together. If they do not have the same power, it's not how it is. It's just kind of the deal, right? And so multiplying, I'm going to leave that for the video that you have this week. I was pretty clear with that. You remember, it's when you multiply everything by everything. Some people call it FOIL, and some people call it, what do you call it? Some people call it the distributive property. I like the distributive property. It just means multiply anything. So when it's multiplying, you can multiply an x to the third times a n to the fifth. You can multiply an x to the second times an x to the seventh. They can be mixed up all day. You can multiply anything by anything. But if it's adding or subtracting, they have to be alike. Okay. It's almost like a segregated like that, right? That's a horrible analogy, but that's kind of what that means. Okay. All right. So moving on topics. I'm going quickly today. So we also have people taking my money. It's like an ad for my different products. The Money Made Simple financial course, right? And this has been a heavy week in a sense because there's just so much information. It was a wealth of information. We were talking about investments and the difference between investing versus saving, mutual funds, IRAs, Roth IRAs. So I just wanted to go over as a reminder just some of the things that we had discussed so it'll sink in a little bit, right? So that one of the first things we did in our session is we were talking about just basically a general idea of what's the difference between saving versus investing. Excuse me. And so we looked at a slide that kind of had it in categories. And so I just want to talk to you about that for a minute. So when it comes to saving, remember, saving, you want it to be liquid, okay, or easily able to be, liquidated, right? Meaning I can get it in cash. Savings is something that I can easily use as a medium exchange in a short period of time. So examples would be cash, T-bills, money market accounts. It's the process of putting cold hard cash pretty much aside so it can be used in short term or on minimal notice, right? So if you get a savings account, they're not really interested in making these, you're not going to get good return in a savings account. Your interest rate is very minimal. It's practically like doing nothing. And so you think of that as like your emergency fund, right? If you've ever seen Dave Ramsey talk, he talks about the wisdom of having like $1,000 emergency fund because, things do happen. Something happens with the car or some other issue if you're a homeowner, right? And next thing you know, you might have to drop up to $1,000 like that, and it'd be really good not to put it on a credit card so you avoid debt. You can also use it for saving up for a purchase that is going to be a little larger purchase, but it's a short period of time. And so average return in like savings accounts, you're talking like 0 to 2%. 2% is like actually really high and really good. You probably have to shop around for that, right? But the objective is totally different versus like investing. That's long-term financial success. You're thinking like retirement 30 years from now. You're taking into account inflation. We talked about that, how, when I'll use my parents again. When my parents were like on their honeymoon, I think I found an old stub ticket and they put it in a scrapbook and they got into Disney World for $3.30. How much y'all think a ticket to Disney World costs these days? I I venture to say it costs a little more than $3.30. In fact, I'm kind of curious about it. Maybe we should look it up right now. How much is a ticket? Let's do that. Is a ticket to Disney? I have no idea. Oh, look at that. It's anywhere from $110 to $190. That right there is what we call inflation. Things that used to be this much now cost this much. So the point is you want to invest according to the reality of inflation. You need to make even more money 30 years, and plan for that because things are going to cost more. Your milk might be $4 now for a gallon, and maybe in 2060 or whatever y'all are going to be when you retire, maybe you need 22.50 for a gallon of milk. Isn't that scary? But that's kind of the point. So examples would be like stocks, bonds, like I said, mutual funds, index funds. Property is a big one. You can use that as part of your retirement portfolio. And so, the wisdom, it really comes from, you can almost look at it like, a proverb or something like that, where you split up many of, your streams of investment, because you never know what's going to happen. The crops could fail here, but they could spring up here. Right. And so even if one stock that you own in a company goes belly up, you had several, that wasn't where all your eggs were. Right. And so maybe somewhere else was way more successful than you anticipated. It makes up for that loss. Right. So there's a lot of wisdom there. And on average, investments, mutual funds, you're talking like 6 to 10% on your money, versus saving, like I said, was 0 to 2%. Now, one of the things I want to just really emphasize with you that I think is important, we talked about this. It's like a key takeaway: the difference between like a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. Remember, a Roth IRA, it's probably my recommendation, right? Because of the tax situation, right? So with a Roth IRA, you're getting taxed on your income fully. You don't get to deduct, what you contribute to your IRA. And so you're paying full tax while you're contributing to it right now. But the beauty of it is, when you're like older and you really need every penny and you're on a fixed income, whatever, you don't have to pay taxes on the money that, the dividends, what starts coming in. If you had a traditional, it's the other way around. You can deduct it while you're paying it in. So, like, for example, let's say you're making $60,000 a year, but you put in $6,000 into a traditional IRA throughout the course of that year, right? The government would only look at it like you made 54,000 when you really made 60,000. But because you were contributing 6,000 of it, they'll only count your income as 54,000 and tax you on that, which means less taxes you have to pay along the way, right? That's nice, except for on the other end of that, when you're time to retire, you're gonna get your dividends, and you're gonna, the income's gonna start coming in, and then you got to pay tax, and it's already probably going to be higher inflation. So, Roth IRA, good financial advisors will usually, suggest that. But like I said, we talked about so many things. I can't cover it all because we're only, my goal is to hit about 5 to 8 minutes per topic on this. It's just to kind of remind you what we talked about. Oh yeah, and just kind of help it sink in. But anyway, let's double check one more thing that I might have wanted to mention as far as that. But anyway, I hope you guys, just wish you the best. Stay positive, stay up. If you don't get something the first time on the online assessments, they should have it where you can take it like almost pretty much on a limited number of times. So take it a second attempt, right? Take it a third attempt. Look at your mistakes and study them, learn from them, right? It's okay to make a mistake if you're actually trying, and then look at the mistakes and try to correct them. And really, you learn better that way, sometimes going for it and seeing what happens, seeing your results, and then changing it, right? And that's how scientists operate. Whoops, I blew up the science lab. Don't do that again. They call it research instead of failing miserably, right? So anyway, I hope that helps, and reach out to me if you guys have any questions or concerns along the way. I know you guys can do this. Step up to the challenge. You're doing great, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, peace.